For most of us, the guitar is the popular instrument for American music, also meaning the music of Latin America. Our guest is a virtuoso classical guitarist and faculty member at UMass Boston who channels a broad range of music from Japanese composers and arrangements to the American avant-garde and even a little Gershwin. To bring us up to date on his work and a free concert at UMass is our guest, Aaron Larget-Caplan. Thank you very much for being with us, Aaron.
It's a pleasure to be here, Chris. Thank you.
First of all, one of the things I know you're conservatory grad here in Boston, New England Conservatory,
Yes.
but you're also a neighborhood musician in Upham's Corner playing classical guitar. What's that like?
It's actually quite amazing. The neighborhood of Dorchester opened my eyes quite a bit to the diversity of our city. I have Puerto Rican, Cape Verde, Dominican neighbors, and for a lot of them, the guitar is just part of their living. I mean, it's part of their life that they grew up hearing, not necessarily John Cage or Japanese music. And so it's actually really quite wonderful to share in the music. I had some Vietnamese students who lived on Dot Ave coming to concerts and just sharing in the wealth of music. It's quite exciting.
Well, you are also just pretty much a typical American kid growing up in Oklahoma and Colorado, and
very much.
And all of a sudden, you got into this classical guitar trajectory. So, how did that happen?
I was in high school in Denver, Colorado, and a Spanish teacher put a video of the great Andrés Segovia playing wonderful work in the Prado in Madrid, the great museum. And I was hooked. I went home and I dropped my pick for my electric guitar and started looking for music. And this is before the internet, so I didn't know that there were other classical guitarists. I just thought it was me. And I just grabbed piano music, I grabbed violin music, and I would just try and read it. And then I came to school for 1 year at Boston University, and then transferred to the New England Conservatory, and realized there was a huge, huge repertoire of music and sound. And then traveled to Spain and did festivals there and in Italy, and decided to come back to Boston, and here I am.
I want to bring up one sample of your recent recording, and when I looked at the title, I thought, oh, this is going to be Japanese, but it sounds almost more Spanish than Japanese.
Well, the CD, Legend of Hagoromo, is, yes, it's a Japanese theme, but it's music. And there are elements, especially of the title track by Keigo Fuji. He had lived in Spain, he studied in Spain, and he wanted to write a piece of music that represented him. We have open musical borders right now. And so he put his thoughts based on a Japanese theme, but he put in Spanish type of strumming called rasgueado. He's using effects that are very typical in Spanish music, but the mode or the key is different. And so they influence each other.
We'll have a little listen to that right now. Turning to another preoccupation here, John Cage. I don't associate John Cage readily with guitarists, and he wrote a piece about maybe 1950 or so for violin and piano, and you rearranged it.
Yes, well, and you're correct. John Cage and the guitar are not good friends in the sense we don't know of him using the guitar ever, that I know of. But this piece, 6 Melodies for violin and piano, I took the piano part and I put it onto the guitar. And it fits beautifully. Very, very few changes. Some of it is register because the piano can play very low and very high, but I can do a lot of that in between. And this piece in particular, he uses what we call timbre, color, where he'll use special directions for the pianist to get a color that is softer, a special pedal. Well, on the guitar, all I do is I adjust my wrist, or I play the note in a different place to match that timbre. So color-wise, the guitar is a rainbow. It's an orchestra, and it allows the violinist not to have to compete with such a loud instrument as the piano. And it is the first officially published work of John Cage to feature guitar.
Aaron, talk about the difference between a guitar and a piano here, because there are times when a piano can just overwhelm a single violin.
Well, besides the structure of the piano, I mean, it has a steel hull inside. It has many more keys, so the range is much grander, hence grand piano, and it's much louder. It has a volume that can be sustained much longer than a guitar. The guitar itself, if I want to play very loud, I have to really nail most of the strings, like a strum, to get that sound. But the guitar has a great range of volume. It's just, instead of being very loud, mid-range and very loud, it can be extremely quiet and have a good mid-range. So if one is sensitive to these elements, it can create the illusion of being very loud, because we, as a performer, want to capture our audience, want to take them inside, and then get quieter, get louder, and have this variation.
Well, speaking of audiences, you've got a free concert coming up too.
Yes. At the University of Massachusetts, I'll be playing on Tuesday, March 1st at 12:30, and I'll be playing two pieces. Well, one is with keyboard. A pianist, Roberto Poli, wonderful Italian pianist who lives in Boston, will be joining me for a work by Emanuele Ponce, and then a work that's originally for keyboard, but not like a keyboard we see now, a harpsichord, much earlier, by Johann Sebastian Bach, The Chromatic Fantasy, and I arranged that to be played on guitar. And so it'll be different than the original, but it creates this, it has this Sturmendrang of inspiration, because it's improv, the improvisation, the chromatic fantasy, where emotions turn left and right. And then I'll be playing the great Legend of Hagoromo by Keigo Fuji.
All right, well, thank you very much for being with us.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Aaron Larget-Caplan will have more news in just a moment.